Welcome back. This is the next step, and this is chapter 1 of the Buyer's Guide to the Steps to Consider when buying your next home. Here we're going to start by defining your real estate purchase project. Now, this first step is to define your real estate project precisely. It is essential to spend some time defining your needs, to ask yourself questions that define your why for purchasing. A necessary reflection that allows you to later target the real estate offers that better suit you and to be sure that they match your needs. The first thing to think about is always location, location, location. The location of your property is the first question to have. It is of great importance, and particularly concerning the price of the home. It is necessary to ask yourself if you want to live in the center of one of the beautiful cities in the Triad, or if you would like to live on the outskirts. What is important to you? What are your current means of transportation? What are your preferred school districts? What shops do you want to be close to? Or are you and your family interested in experiencing a serene outskirt where there are walking trails, lakes, and plenty of leaves? My clients especially enjoy these parts of the city because there are larger and newer accommodations in these areas where new homes are being built every single day. Being on the outskirts could also mean new schools, a different commute, switching grocery stores, which is something to think about. No matter where you are, you want to live, and you must ask yourself questions that make sure that you take advantages of settling in the city versus the boroughs. Are you ready to take your car whenever you want to shop or take your kids to school? You also have to look at the distance from your workplace. For example, are you really willing to travel an extra 15 to 20 minutes every day in order to get to a destination? What is more important to you, comfort or space? Ask yourself the real hard questions that allow you to really think about your home purchase. We want you to be prepared for this transition, and we want you to know that it may take several small steps to get you there. Remember, Confucius says that the man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. The next thing we want to focus on is the type of property. Another question to be answered is, what type of property do you want to acquire? Whether it is a condo, a house, or land, the process will not be the same for all, but it could be similar. To make this choice, consider the following. People moving towards an apartment or a condo should not be afraid of crowding, the possibility of hearing noise of neighbors, or the lack of outdoor space. In their thinking, they must consider the co-ownership drawbacks. The advantage of a house is also to benefit most often from an outdoor space, but what will it cost you? Will you have time to take care of it? A third option is to buy land and build. If you're building your own home to your liking, it can mean that you want it to be attractive and you want it to look exactly the way you want it to look. It should not be forgotten that it takes an average of 1 year to take on this project from scratch. Now, I do know of some options in the triad area that can actually get you where you need to be in under 90 days as far as building a home, but they are in specific areas of town. So definitely get with me if you're interested in that type of thing as well. A project that can take a long time can be something that can be overwhelming. So you want to make sure that you have time prepared to do that. Their maintenance costs are higher, and the costs can quickly climb in these types of projects if you're not careful. And this is also why I use an alternative to my clients to help them get into a newly built home in under 100 days. I work with several different properties who offer brand new, affordable homes that you can customize to your liking. Next, you want to think about new or old. The choice must also be made on the new or the old home. When you think about the option of new or old, it must be considered that today, the highest number of new constructions are far from city centers and may not have the charm of old stones. New developments are not always easy to imagine what the project will look like when it's finished, but also the neighborhood. If there is new infrastructure, new shops, or city transportation coming, these are things that you may not definitely be aware of. From a financial point of view, the difference in the price can compensate by the assurance that during the first few years, you will not have to worry about major work to be done and any repairs. Make sure to establish your budget. You want to have a precise idea of your available budget, and it should be in alignment with how much you want to spend on real estate. This requires knowing your numbers monthly, what your payments are, and the amount of money that you can save directly without resorting to borrowing. It also may be wise to look at any financial help that you may need for this financial project. The next thing that you want to be aware of is your borrowing capacity. Before embarking on buying a piece of real estate, it is essential to know what is called your borrowing capacity. This term means the amount that a bank will be able to grant you. Now, it is calculated by taking into account the household resources such as wages, property income, financial investments, etc., and expenses such as your rent, insurance, telephone bills, transportation, etc. These are the numbers that we went over as far as the front end bills and the back end bills at the beginning of this ebook. The difference is the remainder to live, which is the amount that the households have every month after paying their bills. From one bank to another, the debt capacity granted may be different. In fact, online banks may give you an estimate that is too high, while your regular bank may not be so generous. It is possible to speak to several different institutions until you find out which one offers the essential loan you need. Next is personal contribution. The personal contribution is the amount of money that will make it possible to finance without borrowing. Having your own significant contribution can be a real plus for your financial profile. The idea is to make sure that you have around 20% of the total cost of your real estate property. To increase these options, it is possible to use family resources such as parents, friends, relatives can also decide to help. Parents can decide to help their children become homeowners through a living donation or even a family loan. There is a time to sit down with your family, finances, and the feelings to paint yourself a picture of what you want your future to look like. The future. As a rebel myself, it was hard to call one place home for me. I never called my hometown of Stanton, Virginia home. Because of this, the home was where I laid my head. And the thought of committing to one area for a long time used to intimidate me. My dreams were big, and I just didn't want to commit to something as big as a house note. And then I changed my mind and decided to move across the country a few years later. This is when I discovered some amazing statistics. The average person who purchases a first home only lives in it about 11.4 years, and 14.8 years for people who have purchased a home before. This eased my tension of being tied to a home or location, or what made it even better was the possibility of turning the home into an investment property later. Think about your future. What does it look like? Can you commit to the next 7 years in this home? Sometimes that's all the time a dreamer can give a place. And that's okay, because you can still buy a home. The next thing to think about is additional costs. In all of this thinking, we must not forget your additional costs. The price of the property is not the only amount paid. In calculating the necessary budget, take into account notary fees, the real estate agency fees, administration fees, closing costs, and inspections. The search for a condo or a home. When the project begins to be more precise and the budget has been determined, the research can begin. Again, it is essential to ask yourself several questions to increase your chances of finding the ideal property as quickly as possible. The different ways to find the property. To successfully find a home, there are many channels that exist. The first place that people generally go to is Google, Zillow, Trulia, or Realtor.com. And while these are the first places to go, these places can be the biggest disappointment. They are not updated regularly, not monitored, and most of the time it's mined data or information that isn't fact-checked, and it isn't always collected correctly. These things can make these places a melting pot for letdowns, misinformation, and missing out on property that you love. Next time, the simplest and oldest way to find something is through word of mouth. And if you're looking for a property in a neighborhood in which you maybe already reside in, do not hesitate to talk about it with your neighbors or the neighbors where you have friends. One of them may have heard of something. It can also be smart to drive around areas that you like most, and you may come across a sign that's for sale or a real estate agency window that's listing a property in that area. Also, think about word of mouth 2.0. Social media networks like Facebook, Instagram can definitely help you find accommodations. Since the house search can become so overwhelming with emails of inquiries, phone calls, lists, and favorites on every website, I suggest you find a way to keep all of that in a much more organized way. This is where it comes in handy to find yourself a great and experienced real estate professional. To book an appointment with me, you can always go to octaviaharris.com or octaviainspiresdreams.com and book an appointment with me, and we can definitely talk about your goals, dreams, and aspirations. If you are in the Triad, North Carolina area, I will be more than happy to serve you. And I'm also happy to refer you to people who may be in your area. Next, a real estate professional. To be sure not to miss the perfect home, I would put you on an email list campaign that will notify you when homes that match your interests come up on the market for sale. That means you get to know immediately the moment that real estate agent places that home for sale. You will be notified as soon as the property that corresponds to your desired area and your desired location and with the right price range is put on sale. Remember, as an experienced real estate professional, I would also be able to negotiate on your behalf, and this can give you a little wiggle room. Finally, it is also possible to find happiness at an auction. Even if this process is not necessarily usual, being interested in it can make it a possible good idea for yourself. Look at all your options and figure out which option works best for you.